perfect news for everybody that I'm sure you're going to be mega pleased about. All the Valorant players, you might want to have a think about whether or not you want to continue to play. Now, look, I played Valorant, obviously, when it first came out. I deleted a ton of shit off my PC because it's spyware. It's essentially spyware. That's what the client is. To have Vanguard on, you're essentially saying, yes, I don't mind an American company owned by a Chinese mega corporation being able to gain access to all my files on my PC, which I do mind that. I really do. And I think we've got real problems with some of the rights we've surrendered away to big corporations, like privacy-wise anyway, and some of the access that these people have. And we're continuing to give them this access. As I said, things like Siri recording you when you're not speaking to Siri. I think people have talked about PlayStation doing it through the controllers. There was a murder case where they requested a Siri recordings log to see if anything was on there that would show the argument or whatever. So we're already got problems, but this was the story that came out that Riot Games in Valorant now are going to literally just start recording your voice. It's going to start next month. You can see here, Riot Games will begin background evaluation of recorded in-game voice communications starting July 13th in North America. In a brief statement, Riot said that the purpose of the recording is ultimately to collect clear evidence that could verify any violations of behavioral policies. For now, however, recordings will be used to develop the evaluation system that may eventually be implemented. That means training some kind of language model using the recording, says Riot, to get the tech in a good enough place for a beta launch later this year. So they also say, Riot makes clear that voice evaluation from this test will not be used for reports. We know that before we can even think of expanding this tool, we'll have to be confident it's effective. And if mistakes happen, we have systems in place to make sure we can correct any false positives or negatives for that matter, said Riot. Now, it goes a little bit deeper than that, because if you go back to their privacy changes they made, it was there in April that they wanted to have the right to basically potentially record your voice and store it. And the reason they're doing it in North America, I wager, and not Europe, is because of GDPR. Because obviously, if you're in a European country and the UK as well, we've got data protection laws that essentially make it so you can have the right to have a copy of anything that any kind of service provider, any data they have on you whatsoever. This applies to CCTV, for example, in the UK. One of the things that, I think it might have been the comedian Mark Thomas, I'm not too sure, but what they wanted to do was, because obviously this was at a time before we'd just given up and allowed the expansion of CCTV across Britain, I think one of the exercises he did was he walked past the camera. Actually, it might have been Mark Thomas, it might have been someone else. But anyway, they walked past the camera, this one CCTV camera, multiple times, and then they requested videotape, which they were entitled to legally, of each time they went past. And the thought process was that eventually, if they did this enough for this private CCTV, it would eventually go out of business because they would lose so much having to send VHS tapes in an envelope to this person under the guy, that they were legally entitled to. So they said here, the Valorant voice evaluation update. And what's crazy about this is the way they make it just sound so, benign. The Valorant voice evaluation update. Riot Games recently updated its privacy notice in terms of service to allow us to record and evaluate in-game communications when a report for that type of behavior is submitted, with the goal of kicking this off in Valorant first. So it's going to be a system that they're going to use in other games. And I'll get to what they actually want to do based on what they've put in the legally binding terms of service. Earlier this year, we mentioned that as part of our current game systems that combat disruptive behavior, voice evaluation would provide a way to collect clear evidence that could verify any violations of behavioral policies before we can take any action. This would also help us share back to players why a particular action resulted in a penalty. On July 13th, we're going to begin a background launch of the voice valuation system in North America, English only, to help train our language models and get the tech in a good enough place for a beta launch later this year. Voice evaluation during this period will not be used for reports. That will only begin with a future beta. And we know that before we can think of expanding this tool, we'll have to be confident it's effective. And if mistakes happen, we have systems in place to make sure we can correct it. This is brand new tech, and there will be for sure growing pains. But the premise of a safer and more inclusive environment for everyone who chooses to play is worth it. So here's what I don't understand. What is safer about Tencent-owned Riot Games having voice recordings of every North American player that plays their game? Remember, I've been pretty consistent on this. I never wanted us to be doing that thing where we record voice comms and upload it, but that's become standard, apparently. I think voice comms between teams should be sort of, a little bit private, a little bit sacred in a way. You shouldn't need to hear what they're saying, but we do it as a cheating measure, and that's what we've all agreed to. I never really liked it, but why would it be good that a pub player comes in, has a tantrum, maybe not even enough to get banned, but you've got that recorded now forever? And by the way, they're building an AI that can detect whether or not what somebody said was wrong or bad, and they're doing that based on, hundreds of thousands of people's voices being put into what I imagine is a huge database. What worries me is, I was talking about this with Sam, funnily enough, on the I Hate It Here AI special we recorded. They've now got AI, which, by the way, you can input a minimal amount of words and it can synthesize, obviously the more words the better, but it can totally synthesize your voice and make it appear like you've said things that you haven't said. And that, to me, is a problem if there's an entity that we all know has had issues in the past. They fucked up GDPR, right? They covered up a cybersecurity leak. They literally covered it up. You can go read my articles back in 2013. They didn't even tell people that there'd been a security breach and just tried to pretend that it didn't happen. They fucked up GDPR when that first became a requirement, and they literally sent hundreds, if not thousands of people the wrong fucking details, including credit card details and stuff. It was fucking crazy. So I would not want Riot Games to have hundreds and hundreds of hours of my recorded voice. And I would want Tencent to have hundreds and hundreds of hours of my recorded voice a lot less. But again, they make it sound benign. Hey guys, we'll be able to tell if somebody said a bad word to you during a video game, and then we can retroactively ban them. And eventually we'll get to a point where the AI, if it hears a word, it'll know you're a bad person. It'll instantly ban you from the game. And we won't, because, algorithms and AIs having administration powers has never gone wrong on any monolithic tech platform ever before, right? That's never been a problem. But here's the mad thing. They put it at the top here on this updating the privacy notice, right? So they also updated this. And this is on their terms of service. And you can see on the legal stuff, it says, the update to our privacy notice allows us to record and potentially evaluate voice data when using Riot-owned voice comms channels. When a player submits a report for disruptive or offensive behavior, the relevant audio data will be stored in your account's registered region and evaluated to see if our behavior agreement was violated. If a violation is detected, we'll take action. After the data has been made available to the player in a violation and no longer needed for review, the data will be deleted, similar to how we currently handle text-based chat reports. If no violation is detected, or if no report is filed in a timely manner, the data will be deleted. So this reminds me a lot of a problem that we had in the UK. And this was a big thing, and there's been a number of successful court cases around it. But and I know about this. because, you know, I follow a lot of, like, you know, like the Innocence Project and just general Amnesty International, just general charities and stuff that deal with, like, police overreach. But one of the problems we have in the UK is, let's say you're accused of a crime, and then let's say you're arrested. And you're arrested under suspicion of that crime, and one of the things they do in the UK when they arrest you is they take your fingerprints. Okay, they take all of your fingerprints. They take photographs of any scars, birthmarks, or tattoos, anything that would be a significantly unique identifier, and they swab your DNA with a mouth swab. And by the way, you cannot refuse to do this. If you refuse to do this, they get the DNA another way. And then they arrest you. And then you sit there, and then you're found innocent. And what they're supposed to do is they're supposed to delete all of that because they don't have a right to it anymore. You are no longer part of an ongoing investigation. However, what police authorities are actually doing, they keep that DNA and they refuse to delete it, and they keep it on record for years, if not indefinitely, which is a violation of your civil liberties. Why? Because they could plant that evidence. If I've got your DNA and I want to fit you up for a crime, I can plant your DNA at the scene of the crime, right? So it's imperative that these things are deleted and removed if you are found innocent of no crime. And so what worries me here is the wording explicitly says that we will keep your voice recordings for as long as we deem necessary after a game. And if you're accused of something, we keep it a little bit longer, whether or not we then find you innocent, and then we definitely will, honest God, bleeding blimey, governor, totally delete it, hand on heart, cross my heart, hope to die, stick a needle in my eye, we'll delete it in a non-specified time frame. And, you know, you're essentially training up their systems for free, anyway, with your words in voice chat. And I would want to know exactly when you're going to delete my voice. I want to know how long it's going to be stored for. I want to know an exact time frame, how long you're going to have access to it. See, they leave all of that stuff out in the main report or whatever. So they also go on to say that this isn't an opt-out. All players that play the game have to accept this. Valorant is the only available game currently that plans to utilize the ability to record voice data and review it. Even though the legal document update gives us the ability to capture voice data, League of Legends, Wild Rift, and Teamfight Tactics currently have no plans to record voice chat or expand the voice chat capabilities beyond third-party voice chat. Legends of Runeterra does not have any plans to implement a voice chat. So all of that says there is that we're not going to do anything yet. We're not going to do anything at the moment. It's not a widespread commitment. And, you know, basically, your option here is, if you feel uncomfortable with Riot Games recording your voice and doing things with your voice and having a database with your voice on it and potentially having the option to manipulate your voice. Remember, I'm not being paranoid, because if you go back and look at the LCS contracts that they made all of the players who competed in LCS and now LEC and all of their leagues, right? It specifically says, we want to have the right to record your voice. We want to have the right to manipulate that recording if we want to. And we want to be able to do that in perpetuity because you were a professional player at our video game. Yeah, so it does make me a little bit nervous. I don't like it at all. It shouldn't really be something that's happening. And people are going to agree to it, and people are going to sign up to it, and people are going to go along with it because they don't want to press a mute button. You're basically going to accept this so you don't have to press a mute button. You would rather somebody that was shouting and screaming at you, you're going to give up your fucking data, you're going to give up your rights, you're going to give up your voice, you're going to let this untrustworthy corporation record you just so they might ban somebody who's been an asshole to you. Here you go. They even said, listen guys, this is why we're doing it. We've been taking a look at disruptive behaviour in our games for a while, and voice evaluation is just one of the ways we want to make our games better for everyone. Disruptive behaviour on voice comms is a huge pain point for a lot of players. Mute button. fixed. And we believe one of the ways to combat it is by providing quick and accurate ways to report abuse or harassment so we know when to take action. We also need clear evidence to verify violations of behavioural policies before we take that action and to help us share with players on why a particular behaviour may have resulted in a penalty. For Valorant, we recognise there is still a lot of work to be done when it comes to the issues surrounding player behaviour. Back in February, we did launch an improved AFK detection and new penalties for AFK offences, text moderation for more than 11 languages, and report feedback so player knows when an action has been taken on a report that they've submitted. We'll continue this work by utilising voice evaluation to eventually launch voice improved detection and penalties around voice comms. But what about data privacy? We believe we should collect the absolute minimum data to effectively run our games and continuously improve your experience. That's not the minimum, is it? It's not the minimum at all. Like, the minimum is almost nothing. The minimum is get my geolocation so you can maybe make sure I go on an appropriate server. There you go. That's it. Problem solved. Maybe an email address. You know, so if I ever get locked out of my account, I can retrieve it. If you believe you should be recording the absolute minimum, why the fuck are you recording kids' voices? What's going on there? I mean, I haven't even got into the age thing, because whatever. But, you know, a lot of people who play Valorant are kids. Like, and I hate this idea that, okay, we're all idiots when we're kids, right? So imagine a kid says something really inappropriate during a video game that they're playing because they're angry and they're a kid and they can't control their emotions. I'm talking like an actual kid, like 13. And then Riot Games message them and go, we're banning your account and this is why. And they play them back a clip of it, you know, of them saying it. Like, I don't know. That seems creepy and fucking weird to me. That really seems like what Riot Light used to do when he used to do them smites and he used to come out on Reddit and people would go, I've been banned for no reason, and Riot Light would go, I've privately accessed your chat logs and look what you said in the video game and that's why you were banned. And everyone, yeah, a senior worker at Riot Games is violating this person's right to privacy. This is hilarious. I certainly hope that evil Richard Lewis doesn't call him out for it. Well, what's this story about him having strange relationships with women and offering them jobs, and he's no longer at the company anymore? Oh, but not to worry, he works at Facebook now. That's what the League of Legends community said. But I think this is like weird and fucked up. We know collecting voice data is a concern for many of you, but be assured we would never ship anything if we weren't comfortable having our own data treated the same way. And if you prefer to not have your voice chat captured, you can turn off voice chat. Will you be actively listening to me? No, we won't actively monitor your live game comms. We'll only potentially listen to and review voice logs when disruptive voice behavior is reported. That's the same thing. That answer is ridiculous. Because would you be listening to me? Not in real time. That's what you're really saying. Not in real time. But if anyone reports you, I will certainly be able to listen to the entirety of everything you've said. And so now your option is don't use voice chat at all, ever, which, spoiler, if you are going to play the game, don't. It's a shame because you need to, but don't. I wouldn't trust Riot with your data. I would trust Tencent even less. But, yeah, there you go. And so eventually I imagine it will come to all of their games. I mean, understand as well, over in China right now, and this is not a meme, because of the new state rules around kids playing video games, you use facial recognition technology to log into your accounts to make sure that you're a fucking, you know, you're the actual person and you're of age. So it's just ridiculous. So yeah, everyone's gonna be fine with this. And spoiler, something's gonna happen because it's Riot. There'll be a big scandal somewhere along the lines of, like, somebody internally shares somebody's voice chat or something. One of the creepy weirdo men who work there, ooh, this girl's got a nice voice, ooh, taking it home with him. Ooh. You'll see. It's a certainty. It's a fucking certainty.